What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our Big Ten football channel.
Can anyone, after what we've seen through 8 games, can anybody possibly challenge Ohio State in the Big Ten? The Buckeyes bring to the field one of the more talented rosters in college football every year. At the very top, one of the top 3. Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, even beyond Clemson, have recruited the best talent in the nation for some time. But there's been the big letdown. There's been the Purdue game. There has been the Iowa game. But there have also been games prior to those big letdown moments in which Ohio State gave us indication that they were capable of letting down to that degree. This team is not showing that. The first challenge was supposed to be Cincinnati, and that can only be taken into certain context. Cincinnati is one of the better group of 5s, and Ohio State mauled them 42-0 as just a 15-point favorite. So even Vegas thought it would be a competitive game, and Ohio State destroyed them 42-0. Then it was Nebraska. That was a game that many people eyed the entire offseason to say, Nebraska, Ohio State, Buckeyes going on the road 2 consecutive years against Big Ten Western Division teams. That's the game. That's the one to look out for. Nebraska. Scott Frost is building a championship program. Adrian Martinez is a Heisman potential quarterback. And that's going to be a tough one at night in Lincoln. Ohio State 38-0 at half. So forget what the final score was, 48-7. Ohio State destroyed Nebraska. Then comes Michigan State, number 1 rush defense in the country for the entirety of the 2018 season and for the first part of the 2019 season. And sure, Ohio State was a substantial favorite, but to run for over 300 yards and gain the type yardage and points and put it on Michigan State like they did at home in what was supposed to be the next big challenge, Ohio State disposed of Michigan State easily. And on and on and on and on. And then we get to the Wisconsin game that would be the one. It would have to be the one. Wisconsin throttled Michigan. They throttled Michigan State. They tripped up against Illinois. But we know Wisconsin, they're tough, they're gritty, they're laser focused. They approach the game almost like no other program in the country in regards to just being, nerves of steel. Not fazed by Ohio State, not fazed by going to the shoe in Columbus, and would certainly bounce back and would be so angry, upset, ready to prove themselves after dropping that game inexplicably against Illinois. No. Ohio State domination again, 38-7. If you watch this team, they don't apparently have a weakness. They have a tremendous offensive line, blocking for 2 excellent running backs led by J.K. Dobbins, who's starting to get some Heisman talk for his exceptional play, bouncing back from what for him was a subpar sophomore season. Still gained 1,000 yards, but he's an even more explosive, more powerful, better back. Justin Fields at quarterback, multi-dimensional, highest ceiling in the country, still growing into the position, but he's playing lights out. Massive touchdown totals from Justin Fields. The wide receiver core is elite, and it's deep. The defensive line may be the best in the country, led by the best defensive player in the country, and maybe the best player in the country, Chase Young. The linebackers have been a sore spot for a couple years. They have shored up their play. They're playing assignment football, mistake-free football. They're not over-pursuing. They're not missing angles. They're plugging holes. They're reading plays. They're sprinting to the football. The defensive alignment and assignments and scheme for Ohio State has been simplified to take advantage of some of the best athletes in the country. And then the secondary is crazy good. Jeffrey Okudah, a top 5 to 10 NFL draft pick coming up in 2020. Shaun Wade, one of the top 5 defensive players in the country. And a note that I heard this past weekend during the Wisconsin game was that if you go back to the 2017 class, so that is the current junior class, Ohio State recruited and signed 4 of the top 8 defensive players from that class. So I believe that would be Chase Young, Jeffrey Okudah, Shaun Wade, and Malik Harrison. So Ohio State's loaded on every level, thin at quarterback, loaded at every level. So can anyone play with them? Well, from a standpoint of can somebody steal the championship from them, we're looking at Penn State. Similar to Ohio State, explosive on offense, young starting quarterback who's playing lights out for the most part, and a stifling defense. Not as talented a roster as Ohio State. Ohio State arguably is the best roster in the country, certainly one of the top 3 to 4. Penn State has a top 10 to 12 roster. So Penn State is the choice since they still have in front of them the head-to-head in Columbus to steal the Big Ten championship away from Ohio State. They are the obvious choice. From the standpoint of derailing Ohio State's season, look at what Michigan's done over the past 2 weeks. Michigan is not going to win the Big Ten. We're not going to run through the metrics, but with 2 losses in conference play and Penn State and Ohio State at 0, they got a lot of ground to make up. They got to force a 3-way tie with Ohio State and Penn State to get it done. But in terms of derailing, do some history. Read your history, do some research on the 1990s, and you will see that if Michigan cannot win a championship themselves, the people that love this rivalry and take it to heart want nothing more than to knock Ohio State out of a championship season. And that's what Michigan will have the opportunity to do in Ann Arbor on the final weekend of November. Just maybe 10 days ago, they looked completely incapable of being able to hope to do that. But after watching them come back from 21-0 down against Penn State and come within a dropped pass in the end zone of tying that game and possibly pulling off a major comeback upset at Happy Valley and showing the resolve that they showed coming in to Happy Valley with the narrative of not playing well against top 10 teams or ranked teams on the road, going down 21-0 and valiantly fighting back to put themselves in position to win that game. And then after the disappointment of losing another game like that and having to carry that narrative into Notre Dame and then obliterating a Notre Dame team that stayed within 6 points of Georgia on the road, I got to hand it to Michigan. Maybe they're going to play the rest of this season with a chip on its shoulders and welcome Ohio State with nothing to lose, nothing tangibly to lose, but to knock off their most hated rival. Maybe Michigan's the team that can derail Ohio State's season. But in terms of supplanting Ohio State as the Big Ten champion, I'm looking right at Penn State. Now, certainly the Western Division winner is the team that will arrive in Indianapolis with the 1-game shot of beating Ohio State. So that's always in play, regardless of what their record is.